Okay, we're going to make a start. As it's John Hartnett. Alexa, good, hear me? Yeah. I'm hearing everything around the room. Yeah, okay. Okay, welcome to North Area Committee. Okay, thank you. I'm Michael Jones. I'm Chair of North Area Committee. I have Vice Chair Joey Bird to my left and Sarah Steve, the Committee Manager for the night. Just a few housekeeping things. We've got the blues off the foyer to the right, and as far as we know, we're not expecting a fire alarm, but follow instructions of council officers if the alarm doesn't go off tonight. Use the microphone, just make sure that you turn off the microphone once you've used them, and there's the roving mics as usual for questions from the floor. We are doing the filming and recording the meeting tonight, so we understand that is every right for that to happen, but I would ask Mr Taylor if we can respect the wishes of any member of the public who don't wish to be filmed. There should be a agenda packs on the table on the side, so if anyone hasn't got the agenda pack, they just over by there. The exhibition, which is also related to agenda item 6, the review of community provision, is on the wall in the foyer, and there's opportunity to talk to Jackie Hanson about that in the intermission when we get to that. No ice cream, I'm afraid, but there's another 10-minute break intermission. I think we're there for the main agenda items. We've covered all the usual procedure. Apologies for absence. I've got quite a few, which I will mention. Councillors Onasanya, Councillor Smart, Councillor Austin, Councillor Pitt. Any other apologies? No? Okay. And I know a couple of apologies are to do with the fact that the meeting is very close to the Easter break, and we try to bear that in mind when we come to the meeting that we're going to set for the 2016-2017 cycle of meetings. Right, okay. I know we're all going to be really nice to each other tonight, and we're not going to mention the campaign that may be happening soon, but we're just going to be nice and respectful to each other, and I'm sure as servants of the people, the public here, we expect that answer. So I hope we'll all be bearing that in mind. Yes.
I wonder if you switched off your mic. Very
no, I haven't. Can you all hear me all right? Yeah?
The emotion's faster.
Yeah, okay. I can hear something echoing back, so I thought we were... right, and also I should say we have a packed programme tonight. We might have the opportunity for a few late items of news. This, of course, is in reference to Paul Ronnie Corbett, who died today, so I thought I'd just mention that as well. I'm sure we're always sad about that. I was a great fan of two Ronnies myself. Anyway, moving on. Minutes of the meeting. I should, by the way, mention if any declaration of interest, do declare them now, or we get to them. Councillor Bird.
Yes, I'm a member of the Rowing on the board.
Regarding the community grant, yes, Councillor Manning.
I mean, it's on the registered members' interest, but I probably should just declare that I live on the estate, which is where the play equipment comes from. Originally, there's going to be just the other area, so it's just.
Okay, thank you. Any other declarations of interest at this point? So they do raise them when we get to the item themselves. Okay, so sets of minutes, we'll take the action list separately as we usually do, but also bear in mind we have two sets of minutes. Related to the correction, by the way, minutes of the 20th of January, not 21st of the agenda. They're on pages 7 to 17, so that's the January meeting North Area Committee. And if we can run through that first of all, so that's pages 7 to 17. Any comments or other corrections on those minutes? No? Okay. Right, fine. And then the minutes of the North Area Committee special meeting on the 4th of February, that's pages 19 to 27. Just should note there is a slight error on page 21, and that refers to the date in terms of the process regarding the city deal. I think it's the last bullet point regarding next steps. And that preferred options consultation will be early 2017, my understanding, not 2016. But otherwise, any other points, corrections, or matters arising from those minutes? Yes, Councillor Scott?
Thank you. I want something to work. I just wanted to say that I know that keeping the minutes is always very difficult, but for this meeting it was particularly difficult, so I think it is important to acknowledge the expertise of the minute taker. With thanks.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, there was a lot of thought went into making sure the minutes trying to reflect the theme and the discussion that came out of the special meeting, so thanks for that comment. Okay, so we move on to the action list. That's from page 29. And we'll do, as usual, I think, and let's quickly run through line by line. And if you've got any comments, any updates, whether people think that the council is responsible want it to be taken off, it's no longer an ongoing item. So on page 29 itself, one of our favourites here, the food route opposite Connaught Green End Road. Do we have any updates? Is this still an ongoing item?
So this is obviously just all tied up in the city deal, and you have to wait to see how that progresses. So I think just we know it's progressing along the rest of the city deal schemes.
Right, so is that something perhaps we ought to maybe take off this list, given it's going to be...
I think we should leave it on, Jay. I think
Leave it on, okay.
it's brought up by a resident who came along with it.
Yeah, fair enough, okay. Right over the page, page 30, and the next item, parking restriction, the Trevor area, impact of our Milton Road Library. In the last update we had the 18th of December. Is this still ongoing?
Well, I mean, in a sense it is, and I'm keeping tabs on it, but the problem is that it isn't easy to get a specific parking space outside the library, and that point's been made by the officers. But the Joint Area Committee working party is working on the whole issue of parking all over Cambridge generally, so perhaps we do leave it on the agenda and can give updates in terms of progress of the working party, where we do hope to come up with a solution for all over Cambridge, which would hopefully address this issue too.
Okay, thank you for that. So we keep that on. And over the page, page 31, progress adjustment sports pavilion. Well, we had an update from Ian Ross at I think it was the meeting before last. So I've not had any further information since that update. As I say, mentioned in the capital programme next year. We'll keep it on for the moment because I think we want to keep an eye on how that development is going regarding Chestnut Sport Pavilion. Councillor Scott?
I'm really sorry. Just to go back to the last one, I just realised the double yellow lines is on that one too. And it is good news to report on the double yellow lines because it is in the queue. There have been 2 new officers appointed to deal with these issues in the county, and therefore our expectation is that the work will proceed in due course. We can't put a date on it, but it's at least in the queue and actually in action.
Okay, thanks for that. Okay, go back to page 31. Next item is the property services issue Tesco around Tesco, the area there, Councillor Price.
Swivel it around, Chair. Yes, thank you. It is still ongoing. The road area just off St Kilda Avenue leading to the area behind the shops has been resurfaced recently. Still waiting to hear about when the yellow lines will be reinstated. The Tesco and the takeaway have both been spoken to about the rubbish, and to the best of my knowledge, because I haven't had any complaints from anybody at the moment, that issue may well have been sorted. But I think we're going to have to leave it on, Chair, until such time as the double yellow lines are.
Okay, fine. Thank you, Councillor Price. We'll keep that on then. Next item is, well, double act, Councillor Manning and myself. I'm not sure if anything further to add on Beacon data.
So this is actually, we should take pride in what they're because they're trailblazers here. So there's actually a wider set of open data stuff that's coming up to the city, or has come up to the city as part of this, and the actual specific bit about area, about police priorities and area committees will be, well, so certain FFB will be ready for the next time we have police and not area committee, or something in some form. So quite exciting stuff actually. If you can go over later.
Okay, so we hope we get more of council report back at Hum North there next in June. Yeah, okay, thanks. Okay, we'll keep that there for a moment until we get that report back.
Sorry, it might end one of the city committees first, because it is a wider package of work that's been come out of this, basically, this county again to the city, doing what the city.
Okay, thanks for that clarification. We'll keep it on the agenda. Right, okay, next item is also the Councillor Montana is not here tonight. I don't think we can follow at all from her behalf, Councillor Vice, but that was something you passed on, I think, to Councillor Montana relating to the speed restrictions on Campkin Road.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yeah, it was indeed something that I passed on to Councillor Olasanya. She has been in touch with officers, and we are still waiting from them a date to when this work can take place. So beyond that, I know not anymore.
Okay, so that policy staying on because we want to see that work followed through. Continue on page 32. Parking issues around Mitcham's Corner. Councillor Scott?
Yes, thank you. What I will actually do on this is, having spoken with the officers, I'll go to the residents to ask them for an update, because it was the residents' concern that parking was taking place, covering their driveways and preventing them accessing their property. So it seems to me that to go back to the residents would be a wise approach, and I'll do that.
Okay, and we keep it on the list for further report back, okay. Next item myself. This issue, I referred to the three officers about the specific issue regarding overhanging trees, and also they block out the new light columns as well. But you'll probably notice when we get the agenda item on environmental improvement that we're looking at trying to resurface this footpath. And we do have to explore a lot more with the County Council about ownership and responsibility for this footpath between Harveycombe and Trenches Road. So that's very much an ongoing item, but I hope we'll have a lot more to report back on that in the next month area. Okay, next item, I think this one can be taken off, because I think that's fixed, is that right? The wall light, Bottom Street.
Yes, Chair, that's certainly what it says, and I'm sure if it isn't, that the resident will let me know.
Right, okay, so we'll take that one off. Yeah. And the next item, I think this, I understand from Councillor Olasanya, she passes on to me with all of her apologies for tonight, that this is also being sorted out. This is the pothole in Arthur Grove Baptist Church. Any other councils be aware of that? It has been done?
Yes, it has been done.
Right,
It's done in 24 hours.
Thank you, Mr. White. So that can come off as well. Yeah, Chesterton Recreation Ground toilets, query from Councillor Pitt to Executive Councillor Johnson. I don't know if anyone's got any update on that, the absence of Councillor Pitt. No, okay, we'll keep that one then for the time being. And that's it. That's the action list. I'll just point you out the future agenda plan which we're still planning to come to with the next cycle meeting. Thursday, May 34. Right, so we can move on to the items 4 A and B, related to urgent decisions that have been taken in consultation with myself, Vice Chair, and spokes. It's just for information. Decisions have already been made, but I don't know if anyone's got any brief quick comments. So it relates to installation of play area equipment in East Chesterton. I think this one was the V equipment. And also to the Bateson Road green improvements. So pages 35 to 44 regarding the play area equipment, and 45 to 54, 53 actually, regarding Bateson Road. Any particular point or just count the bird?
Thank you, Chair. Just to say that Scotland Road's fantastic, stuff's going in now, Dundee, so I'm really pleased it's happening at long last.
Okay, excellent. Right, thank you very much for that.
If I might just say, in relation to Bateson Green as well, that it's very pleasing to note that that's ongoing.
Okay, thank you. Right.
Yeah, so I mean, this is for me, it's on a very, very long saga which crosses political boundaries in numerous ways, including some former councils, officers, all residents' wishes. But You're all well on that. But I think it would be good to all round to say that this is, as we pass over the executive council between the previous administration and the new administration, I'm pleased to say that thank you to Councillor O'Reilly, especially that there was no, that could way that easily have been supported involved, but there wasn't. I think it's right to recognise when it does happen. We can work together.
Excellent indeed. Thank you very much. A very positive comment. Okay, moving on to item 5. You want to know, they are open forum. I have one question submitted in advance. We'll take that first, and then, well, 2 questions. So we'll take them both. You're the only one submitted in advance. From Mr. Taylor, one regarding the Auto Tree, and second regarding resident association access in Auto.
Chair, could I just say first, I think it was inappropriate to single me out by name in your comments on filming, perhaps because I'm filming overtly, which I think is the right thing to do, particularly as there are many people in the room today who've got in front of them equipment which is capable of recording, and we've also got people here who have covertly recorded meetings and reported on them in the past.
Yes, but anyone can be recording surreptitiously. I'll bear that in mind in the future.
Well, I've taken seriously what councillors have said on that, and I do always listen to councillors. Now, I went to the last City Deal Board meeting to ask them who will take the decision on felling or moving Milton Road trees. I've just had the answer back from the City Deal Board, and what they told me is that it will be a county council officer, one of the county council's directors. Now, I think it's inappropriate for such an important decision, such a contentious decision in the area, to be taken by an officer. So I'd like to ask our county councillors to consider rescinding that delegation to the officer and ensuring that the decision is made by elected county councillors or elected councillors on the board or here or wherever. I think it would be a complete farce if the 3 councillors on the City Deal Board approved a scheme and then had to turn to their director, Graham Hughes at the moment, and ask him if he approves it or not. I've successfully before lobbied on this point at the City Council, which then brought contested tree decisions to councillors. So I don't think that this one should be made by officers.
Right, okay. I don't know if anyone wants to come back on that. I'm not sure it's entirely appropriate. I mean, it sounds like it really matters for the board and the assembly. But Councillor Manning.
Chair, this is going to be a political point, but I tend to make it well done. No, I'm just being open about the fact that there is political disagreement here. And it relates to Mr. Taylor's comments because it's about delegations. The Liberal Democrat group and actually fundamentally the UKIP group were very much against the recent decision on the County Council to remove the delegation to CJAC for making TRO decisions, which is at a higher level than individual trees, but would for the City Deal scheme. So in the normal scheme of things, all the City Deal schemes would have to at some point in some form come to Cambridge Joint Area Committee to make a decision on whether they go ahead, which is a public meeting. It's quite relatively informal for a council meeting, and it's quite easy for residents to speak at. I have to say that, I mean, perhaps Councillor Scott can explain my reason, but Councillor Scott proposed an amendment that did eventually lead to a recommendation going to full council, which removes that delegation from CJAC and puts it onto the City Deal Assembly. So the City Deal Assembly will be proposing the schemes, they will be funding the schemes, and they will be deciding any objections to the schemes, which in my view, with my group, is fundamentally undemocratic. And unfortunately, we lost the vote of the full council because it was, I believe it was Council got correctly that numbers, but it was essentially Labour and Conservatives voting against the Democrats and UKIP. But as I say, I think it's a fundamentally undemocratic way this deal to proceed.
I'm so pleased that Councillor Manning has given me the chance to correct him, because it needs to be corrected absolutely and fundamentally. First, I did not write the resolution to delegate. I wrote an amendment to that motion in the Highways Committee to incorporate safeguards. I also note that nobody on the Liberal Democrats raised any concern about delegation of powers when the delegation went through the Economy and Environment Board, when the delegation went through the planning, through the City Council in relation to planning, and when other delegations went through, they went through without any demur whatsoever. I, in fact, was the first to raise a demur at the Constitutional Ethics Committee, and then when an audience appeared at the meeting of the Highways Committee, then it was only then that any concern was raised by the Liberal Democrats. I should add that the delegation would have gone through, and it would have gone through without any safeguards whatsoever, apart from the fact that I made an amendment to the motion that went through highways. Let me also say this. The City Deal Board cannot delegate to any officer of the county the powers that the county has delegated to the City Deal Board, and therefore they cannot delegate to Mr Hughes. And on the question and the issue that Mr Taylor has asked, I can assure Mr Taylor that I shall raise it with my colleagues at the County Council, and I undertake to come back to Mr Taylor at the next meeting of the Area Committee with a response to what he has said. Ultimately, it would, however, be up to the County Council itself as a whole in full council to rescind any delegations that they've made, not up to me or to my colleagues. But I shall assure Mr Taylor that I shall come back to him.
Yeah, can I suggest we don't get into a debate on this issue now? Richard Taylor asked for a point.
Very small.
Well, no, I think Richard Taylor asked for a point from the two county councillors. You both had a chance to respond and to speak. As Councillor Scudder says, and I'm sure Councillor Manning too, can get in touch with Mr Taylor and make some specific points about who he needs to raise his essentially kind of issue process as much as anything else. Although I appreciate the democratic element to it in terms of decision making. But can I suggest you liaise, you both liaise with Mr Taylor about the right way to taking this forward. So I'm really sorry to everyone who might want to comment on this, but I don't think it's an appropriate forum to have a debate or discussion further on this item. But can we get, sorry Mr Bond, can we go on to your second question, Mr Taylor, about Residents Association action in all their committee?
Thank you. I did think it was appropriate just to lobby my councillors in public. So what I'd like to ask next is I'd like to ask the Chair, what do you know about the membership and decision-making process and policy-making process of the Orchard Avenue Residents Association and the Milton Road Residents Association, in light of the fact that you gave them special access to speak at the last North Area Committee, meaning that many residents, including myself, weren't able to contribute at that meeting?
Well, I have to say that every resident association, they're all invited to the special meeting in North Area. They're all invited to contribute in the first part of the question and answer session on each road, and specifically on the agenda, Eastern Road and Milton Road. And then we went on to questions from individual members of the public. So it was very difficult because there were well over 200 people there, and no people to be turned away. So in terms of managing that meeting, we did our best to account for all of the associations and individual members of the public their comments. So, and we're more than happy to invite every resident association to North Area Committee in the future, and representatives or all members to come if they wish to. I can't not be much more helpful about the way we manage North Area Committee special meeting, but we do our best. Yeah, Councillor Manning?
Yes, to go back to the consensual I think I take Mr Taylor's point that it would be impossible to manage that meeting in anything other than a less than perfect way, because, as Councillor Jones said, I mean, I couldn't get into the room and I was pressing on, and it was very ill-tempered, and I think quite unnecessarily ill-tempered. So I think I think we have to put this in the context that there was simply no way that everyone who attended that meeting, because half the people who attended the meeting couldn't get in the room, there was no way that everyone who attended that meeting would get a chance to have any sort of say. And I think actually Councillor Jones managed it as best it was possible to manage in those circumstances.
Thank you, Councillor Manning. We'll come over to there.
My question was, what does the Chair know about the membership numbers and policy-making process of the two resident associations I named and which he gave special access at that meeting?
They weren't given special access above any other resident association. All those that we knew about and were interested in the issue relating to this were invited, and everyone who came was given an opportunity to speak under the farm where they all spoke. There wasn't any special access for this Histon Road Resident Association or Milton Road Resident Association. And the Histon Road Resident Association in particular had just been set up, so I don't think we were in business of investigating the way they were set up or their procedures, but to make sure that we were open and approachable to any member of the public, whether it's through a resident association or individually, to be able to ask questions at that meeting.
Can I just clarify that I was asking not about special treatment given of one residents' association over another, but special treatment given to those purporting to represent residents' associations over other members of the public present?
Well, as I say, I told you how it's mutual structure, and I think that's an acceptable way of doing it. Are there any other questions from the floor at all? Mr. Bond.
Not a question, but the earlier debate has sparked a suggestion. The biggest, the two resident associations that Mr. Taylor just referred to came into being in response to the threat posed by the city deal to the environment around Milton Road. And it's just a demonstration of how strongly people feel that they came together collectively and put forward their own representatives to represent their views. In Milton Road, one of the nicest things about it has always been that it's one of the nicer approaches into the city centre because of the tree-lined aspect. It sounds as though there might be a threat that someone will rip out those trees before there is a final decision on what, if anything, needs to be done to speed commuters on their merry way to the traffic jam in the city centre, which is a fruitless exercise. So part of the area is, I think, is the conservation area, and therefore there is a measure of protection on trees, but they can't just be torn out willy-nilly. But parts of Milton Road are not, I think, in a conservation area, and therefore would it be appropriate for the City Council to actually put on tree protection orders in the interim to ensure that they are not removed by default before anyone can do about it? Bank holidays are good times for doing this, and it is not unknown for a local authority to do that.
Very briefly, I don't think it would be appropriate for the City Council to slap tree protection orders on County Council trees arbitrarily.
Okay? Yeah, Councillor Scott.
I would like to add that the City Deal Board is operating in accordance with, as I understand it, the interests of Cambridge. And Cambridge, the head of the board, is the head of the Cambridge City Council. In terms of any effect to trees, there's a consultation that has been completed. There's a report that is to go to the advisory committee in June. That report will be public. There's full opportunity for members of the public to attend at the advisory committee and to speak if they give notice. Then there will be various proposals put forward upon which the public has a right to comment and to be consulted, and there will be consultation on that. And then that consultation will be completed and final proposals will come forward that again will go, or ultimate proposals will come that again, as I understand it, go to consultation. So all I can say is in terms of the intelligence that I have received about City Deal processes, there is opportunity for full consultation before any steps are taken. But I think it behoves everybody to recognise that the place to go to ask questions about the City Deal is to the advisory committee, where, as I said, there's full opportunity to ask questions and to get responses from them, and to go to the City Deal Board and get responses from them. It's impossible for us sitting here to respond to questions of that nature.
Okay,
2 points. I don't know, does Councillor Scott like the advisory board be in December rather than the board?
I said the advisory committee, and I bow, corrected by Councillor Manning, that it is an advisory centre. And there is the City Deal Board, Executive Board, to which I refer also.
But, yeah, so there's December and the board. But I don't, just kind of agree that residents should not be coming to the North Area Committee and raising with their local councillors issues about their local area, regardless of whether those issues are raised from the City Deal, from the City Council, from the County Council, from a housing association, or anything like that. I'm pretty sure we all would want to represent the views of our residents and try and respond to them. We all have links directly with officers, whether they're working with the City Deal Board or for the City Council.
yeah, well, I'm happy to take questions here on the City Deal matters, and we can answer them as best we can and as appropriately we can, but we also have to accept there are open public events, when it's the assembly of the board that members of the public can go to and correct forum where they can take their detailed questions. And Mr.
Sorry.
Bond, I'll ask that you're also able to take your question to the board in the assembly as well.
Could
Okay,
I?
Councillor Scott, I think we've dealt with that issue.
Well, I'll speak with Mr. Bond.
Yeah,
after.
but I'm going to do Okay, any other questions from the floor? No? Okay, great, thank you very much for that. We'll move on then to item 6, which is the strategic review of community provision. And Jackie Hanson, or Jackie from Community Development, you know Jackie is here to do an introduction to the report. This is pages 55 to 60 of your agenda. Jackie will give an introduction and answer questions from members here and from the floor. Thank you, Jackie.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, I'd really like to thank you all for the way that you engaged with the drop-in on the way in to help start collecting the information at the stage that we're doing the next stage of this review. So this report really details the approach and the programme and the outcomes for the strategic review of the community provision, which was agreed back in October 15 through by the Executive Council for Communities at the Community Services Scrutiny Committee. The report really is to provide an update for you, and I will be going around to all of the area committees with a similar report so that I can explain the next steps of the exercise that we're currently doing in information gathering, and ask that you know to be where we are with this review, and also for your help in promoting the call for evidence wherever possible so that we can engage with as many people as we can. Section 3, obviously, the background details the approach in more detail, and particularly how it's, rather than looking at the City Council's own facilities in isolation, we're looking at the community development resource and support for communities as a whole across the city to provide background to any future decisions that we make. So the work programme is listed there, and also in 3.2 the outcomes in relation to stronger communities, targeting the council resources to where there's no need, and savings, but particularly not just looking at making reductions in costs, but looking at efficiencies and generating increased income, and looking at where we might redirect resources as a result of the findings of this review. So the first phase that we undertook was the facilities audit, where we pulled together a list of facilities to target and find out information with regards to community use. So in 4.1 we've defined what we were looking as community facilities in relation to this review, and the section 4 details how the audit was undertaken and the methodology in relation to that. We, through a number of ways and means, pulled together a list of 161 facilities, which I've circulated on the tables for you this evening. And when the survey was launched, all of these 161 were invited to participate. We had 75 responses, which was around a 46.5% response rate. The initial survey findings, again, I've circulated for you because apologies that I found an error in the one attached to as appendage 1 to the report, and there was just 2 figures that I needed to amend in the table on the reverse of that on page 60. Number 5 outlines the next steps for this review, where we really are trying to collect evidence. So from the initial findings of the survey, we are, what we call a call for evidence, is looking at a number of different ways to verify that information and develop the information with an evidence base in mind. Alongside the call for evidence, we are doing research in the background, looking at other strategies, looking at our own centres internally, collecting data and doing analysis work on that, and we'll be pulling together these findings to take to a committee report in June to develop and again get approval for the next steps from there. So it really is a staged approach where we're not making any decisions till we undertake the different exercises that we set ourselves to inform the next stage. So you've got on page 58 the questions that we are looking to pose to find if there's any other facilities that we've not identified, what particular needs and evidence of those needs, and also looking at surplus. We're also collecting expressions of interest at this stage so that people can keep informed of the review, or they might have a particular interest and want to discuss that further. So we will meet up with those people and collect what their particular interest is and engage with them throughout the process. I don't propose if there's any more at this stage to add to that, if there's any questions.
Thank you very much, Becky. And as Jackie mentioned, we still have the amendment in terms of statistics and the initial work that's been done, this sheet here, plus a map of the community division around the city and an index to the first location. So any comments on that and the main report itself? I'm sure Jackie can answer them. Is anyone got any particular point? Councillor Bird and Councillor May.
Thanks, Jack. Just a query, really. Out of the age groups of people that use community centres, what's the highest rate of age? Just having, is it 20 to 30s, 60s to 70s, what's the highest, do you think?
At this stage, we haven't drilled down to that level of analysis. Of the 75 that have replied to the survey, which collected more detail about the use and the levels, we will have some of that information. Again, that is part of this process at the moment. So we're hoping that those people will come forward. So in addition to going out in the drop-ins, we will have an online survey available from tomorrow, and we'll send it to focus groups, one of which will particularly target young people, but we're hoping to engage with the equalities strands through a particular meeting that's been organised. So I think we're hoping that the groupings of people will participate and give us their feedback and evidence and thoughts on this. And we will be able to drill down with the information that we get. But whether we get to really being able to make an assessment across the city around that, we will only be able to do that with the information that we're provided, which will be part of the next stage.
Okay, thank you, Jackie. Councillor
Thank you. There is probably something we need to follow up in more detail after this, but just carefully, because I saw you showed the index of mental deprivation data on the map. I wonder if it would be possible anyway to get some picture of where some of these facilities have some sort of council and or public sector funding, some sort of measure of how that's spread around the geographical area. As in, obviously what I'm getting towards is you hope that in very, very broad terms, we could probably hope that more public funds went into the areas that were in the more deprived locations. It's going to be hard. I think that's going to be a very hard measure to make because there's all different types of funding. So I wouldn't need to spend too long on that, but I'll jot a few ideas around an email. But we've been making already.
What you will see on the map is that we have plotted the City Council's community facilities, so we will know where we are investing direct resource into that. Some of those facilities will be managed by voluntary organisations on behalf of the council. We're also meeting and engaging as part of the process with the county council and other providers to see what facilities they have that we currently. We've also, for example, got libraries on our radar, but whether there's and schools, but whether there are other facilities that are missing. And we will overlay this with facilities where we have invested Section 106 funding, for example. So in the end, I think we will end up hopefully having a similar map that will have as many facilities on it that's available to the public, whether or not they filled in our survey, but that we've collected the data for, and that we can filter in a number of different ways. Because at the moment we've filtered it in relation to the type of facilities, so it's got schools, churches, you can see where the bulk of the response for the survey came from. But certainly we will keep that in mind and build on that as this moves forward.
Thank you, Jackie. And I'm sure one of the reasons you're here is for us members as well as the public to read in any points or comments as part of the consultations. Ms. King.
Thank you. I've got a question about the meadows, basically. I've got a question about the meadows, and most people think of the meadows as being the city. Cambridge News regularly calls it the meadows in King's Hedges, but it's not. It's actually part of the parish of Histon and Impington. And in South Cambs, parishes are normally responsible for both open space and community centres. Histon and Impington have the overarching responsibility for King's Meadows, which is the area in which the Meadows is, and a great number of people in King's Meadows will be attending the Meadows Community Centre. They raise a precept from King's Meadows, and that and their budget in Histon and Impington annually is, I understand, in the region of £400,000. They have reserves at the parish council somewhere in the region of £900,000. As far as I can see, they've ploughed back into King's Meadows roughly 1% of their budget that they run as a parish every year, some £4,000. And my question would be that it's right, of course, to look at where you target resource, and very clearly that area is an area in need of good community support. But should we be asking Impington Parish Council, who are about to spend some £200,000, I think, on their own Impington Rec, whether or not they also have a responsibility to give some of the precept and to where their parishioners are actually using it in King's Meadows? And are those the sort of investigations that you can also do? I have no idea how it would work, whether they could fund, certain things there or put it in, but it seems to me that we are servicing an entire population of some 700 who are being otherwise ignored by Histon and Impington.
Okay, thank you. Jackie, do you want to come back on that?
Thank you, Chair. I think there's a number of responses that I was expecting there listening to you. With regards to use, I think that the use of the meadows will be interrogated through the internal work we'll do, so we'll be able to unpick very much the people and the reasons that people are using the meadows and where they're coming from, their locality, so we will have a good picture of that. The research that we do will also go back to look at where the centres and how they've evolved, because you rightly point out that the meadows itself is within South Cambs and the car park is within the city, and it was funded by the city at a point in time with the development of the estate there. So we will look at that through the research, and obviously the City Council has continued to fund it for, I believe, nearly 20 years. I don't want to misquote that, I should know exactly. I think it's almost 20 years old, and we've always been cautious of the use being targeted towards city residents because the city puts the funding in towards it. But again, as we move forward and look differently and think differently, we'll be looking at all of the city-owned facilities and looking at what the need is in the area, what we want to target the use of those facilities, how they might be managed and used differently. And again, I think an important piece of the work is to follow up the fact that this is in South Cambs, look at who's using it, and have that dialogue with the Impington and Histon Parish. As you've rightly pointed out, and I'm more than happy to take that way as a piece of work as part of this review to follow up on. Thank you.
Mr. Bond.
Yes, really, care and interest. I'm treasurer of St Andrews Hall, which is operating day to day without any public subsidy. point that Jerry asked about was who are the main users. Difficult to say, but mostly it tends to be an older age group because during the day the people who are in middle age are doing other things like earning a living or raising children or taking them to and from school. So the use of halls is often skewed by the local population. But certainly at weekends, I would say we probably get most of the family coming through various things, particularly when children's parties are a great thing that happens, and then you get all ages coming in. Wedding receptions, obviously, the same thing. So it isn't one that you can actually answer. There isn't a simple answer to that question. And some halls will specialise in particular. Brownsfield will have a slightly younger demographic than us because it actually has got activities based there specifically for younger people in a way that we don't at the moment. But we're actually looking to encourage activities for young people. There are one or two that are now taking off because the St Andrew's Church has appointed a youth worker and she is encouraging youngsters to come in and take part in things. So the message I would have is, I was a little alarmed by, is there any halls such as requirement? There are plenty of halls that are underused. And they are underused often because people don't know how to book them. And one of the problems I had when I was working is I used village halls for meetings around the county. And I got fed up with a number of nice looking halls I could not book because I could not find out how to book them, which you'd have thought was primary. So in terms of activity, unfortunately, we're in a situation at St Andrew's Hall is we do have to turn away business from time to time. But the other thing is also, halls need to be kept up to date. And this is a plug, I'm afraid. We are about to install AV in all the rooms so that we can actually have meetings where people can bring along their memory stick, plug it in, and see what they want to talk about with each other, rather than to look their own kit in. And that is one of the ways to go. And I think that is one of the things that needs to be thought about when looking at hall improvements. It's often, it is what can you offer that actually adds value. And obviously, those kind of things people are looking for, and we have lost bookings because we couldn't offer it up till now. So, really not a question, Mr. Chairman, but hopefully that helps. And I must say that as a user, I'm delighted that this piece of work is being carried out. And don't assume that the City Council knows about halls, because outside we discovered 2 existing ones they don't seem to have got, and 3 new ones that are, hopefully, this time next year, at least one of them will be operational.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm sure Jack wants to come back on the particular features of Fusion, which, and also I feel a Donald Rumsfeld question coming on, the known unknowns that are out there, and how the council going to sort of try and capture that information.
I think that's exactly the success of the hour that we managed to talk to as many people as possible, has shown that this piece of work is worthwhile to us, and that we don't know the answers, and that we can develop it with people along the way. A couple of comments on your questions there, Mr. Bond, and I think I might have misinterpreted your question, Councillor Bird, in relation to, if I go back to the city community centres, we do collect data on visits in relation to priority categories, and we have comprehensive information around whether it's local people, families, children, young people activities, BME activities. So we do have all of that data around the kind of type of people using our centres. And again, it was very interesting listening to Mr. Bond, because if I take the Meadows as an example, if you walk in there during the day, it's full of families and people who are trying to gain work, want support in IT, as well as older people. It has really got a mixed daytime base, user base really, and in the evenings it becomes more children in the youth wing, people who've probably been at work in the main wing, and we still have family activity in the children family wing. So it's got an interesting broad breadth, and I hope that that will come out as part of this review. Because sometimes, as I think Claire was speaking about earlier, the actual the use of the meadows, it does get a lot of kind of profile against it, but I'm not sure really that people have the context of the amount that centre is used by people really with high needs, and how it's targeting developing digital inclusion, employability, mental ill health, young people, older people, the health, that type of activities. So I think that is something this piece of work really does need to bring out for everyone to understand it in context. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much again, Jackie. If there are no other comments at this point, then as I say, I just repeat the fact that everyone welcome to get in touch with Jackie with any other thoughts and comments about this review and consultation. Although it's listed as a discussion item, there are actually recommendations, and they're on page 65, and that's basically just to note the work review and initial finding, and to promote the call for evidence stage of review. So can we just see a show of hands? I'm afraid this is City Council only, I'm sorry to say. Show of hands, you support those recommendations? All those in favour? Okay, thank you very much, and thank you again, Jackie. Jackie is still with us for the next item, which is on area community grants. This is pages 61 and 74 of the agenda. Again, Jackie, I'm going to just quickly take us through the report, and if we've got any comments on the detailed report, I'm sure we'll come forward with them. Jackie.
Thank you, Chair. This is the annual report that comes to this committee with regards to grants targeting the North area. In 2.2, you've got a summary of the application received, purpose, and the recommended awards. And if you note the table on page 62, the budget is 24,120, and if you approve the recommendations of this report, the budget will be spent. 3.3 shows the total amount of money and how it's split up across the area communities this year. So there's only 70,000 available, which is not a great deal around, but you can see that the North area has got a substantial proportion of that based on the formula regards population declaration. I included in 3.6, just as a reminder, the priorities and outcomes that we assess these applications on. And again, in 3.9, if I can just highlight to you that where no funding has been proposed or there's been reduction, it really is due to one of those reasons. And I think, if we look at these bids, it was the most challenging set of assessments that I've undertaken grants with just under £60,000 worth of bids, looking to try and assess them against the criteria. And some of the applications were not actually ready to go. Some of the projects have not been formed, and some were not meeting the need or evidencing really meeting the criteria for this fund. So that's really where the team of officers who have assessed this have made those decisions for you to consider tonight. Just again for information, Darwin Drive Youth Group did put in an application, but just before we went to print on this report, they received Police Parking Commission funding. So their youth club activity is still going ahead, but they've got funding which has come from this committee in previous years, and therefore is not in the chart of recommendations. Happy to take questions.
Thank you for the explanation, Jackie. As we mentioned, Appendix 1 on page 65 gives you the detail in terms of the rationale related to the bid and the awards. So any comments on any particular items? I'm not going to go through them line by line, but just take any particular points or comments that want to be made. Councillor Perry?
Just for our interest, even though we actually didn't get an award, is I'm a member of the Friends of St Giles Church.
Thank you. Right, Councillor Gunn, then Councillor Mann.
Thank you very much, Jackie, for the former report was very interesting, and this one too. I did just want to note that under your N31, the Young Girls Group, that although it gets nothing out of this fund, in fact it is being supported by the council because an officer is going to work together with that group. That's my understanding. So, is that correct?
Sorry, which
That's N31, the Young Girls Group, which was denied any funding, but my understanding is that an officer will work together with the group to develop a proposal so that in fact the council is giving support to that group.
Yeah, N31 on page...
Yes, so the Semi Crewers Group, the application, they were not ready to operate that group. So although we put in a bid, it wouldn't have been able to be established, and they need more support. We do have a community development officer that is going to pick that up and work with them and help that to develop.
I did just have two further aspects. I mean, I'm disappointed that Friends of Mitchell's Corner is not getting any funding, but I understand your rationale, and I'll go back to them and give them support for funding applications elsewhere. Just on the Hurst Park Street Party, which is N19, I just did want to say that there is an important issue about developing cohesion in West Chesterton, and that is a new group. I'm not criticising you in not granting the funding, but I do think that one does have to pay attention to the fact that developing community cohesion is equally important in West Chesterton, although it may be more advantaged than other parts of the north. And then finally, my comment just on Oblique Arts. I was just wondering what the problem was there, because they did address the issues of economic need and did seem to be a broadly based application with ideas that fitted in with the rationale for the grant of money. So if you...
N19, page 17.
No, N25 on now. Oblique Arts. The one-day arts festival at Richards Corner.
Oblique Arts, right.
Oblique Arts.
Okay, Jackie?
With the Hurst Park Avenue one, there was no evidence of need or meeting social and economic declaration, or particularly strong as to why this couldn't be funded by an alternative source. And I don't disagree at all with some of the community cohesion really needs, but that's not the main focus for where our grant is targeting. So unless there is the evidence really of a strong bid meeting our criteria there, then it wouldn't really kind of score against the areas that we're really looking at. So I don't disagree with the need of that, but it really didn't meet the requirements of this grant. With regard to N25, again, it was not a very well developed bid, and it was particularly targeting, when you got into the detail of the actual bid, citywide activity, not focusing for the north, and it should have been a bid to the main grants round.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor
Just a quick one. I think I'm probably right in assuming that the bids you've listed, whether they were successful or not, are ones where you actually received a formal application, which I'm just trying to call about, because I know the Chesterton Primary School parents group were asked about submitting an application, but I can't remember whether you or a different officer were advised that they didn't think it would get through, at which point I thought, the officer saying, well, I'm worried that they won't appear on here and we have no oversight of that. So I'm just slightly concerned about how many might have been given informal advice not to apply, which then means you get a bit of mass statistics about who doesn't get on. So I'll probably take, I'm not looking for an answer now, but I'll take a second to afterwards.
Thank you, Chair. We do encourage organisations to ring and speak to our grants officers if they are unclear of the criteria and the eligibility of organisations. The grants officer will take them through key criteria. So, for example, a really simple one, which we do get a number of, the residents are in South Cambs or not even relating to these wards. These sort of things do happen, and they would be non-starters. We never, though, ever say you cannot apply. We will talk through people, we will give them indications of what is strong and weak about the project that they're thinking of working up and how well developed it is. We will signpost them for help and support, and we will always send the form and the criteria for them to then make the final decision themselves. So whatever that conversation is, we have never really said to people you cannot apply, and I'm really not aware of any complaints that have come back through that.
Just say very briefly, because obviously I can't expect you to comment on the exact details of a very specific case, especially in public, but it wasn't a clear case like what you quoted, it wasn't something like that, it was a degree, it was an officer opinion that I disagreed with it, and certainly the overall message that went back from the group, whether it was an explicit don't apply or not, the message that went back to a very new group for a school in the deprived area, Highland Department deprived area, was that they shouldn't apply. Whether that was misinterpretation on their part, partly I'm sure that's the case, but I'll follow up with you after.
Please do.
Okay, thank you. Councillor
Sorry if this has been sort of in another answer, but is there a publicly available list of alternative funders? So presumably you're talking about sort of providing support to groups that have not got funding. Is there a list that's publicly available that could possibly be looked at before by groups so that they know where to go for alternative funding in the first place, necessarily?
It would be really helpful if this magic list was available. But what we do is we pull together any sources that we know. We also sign people to the Cambridge Council for Voluntary Service who have access to Grant Finder, and they link also to Hunts Forum, and they send out bulletins on anything that they can as the voluntary sector get an idea that there's funding available. So we try to cover that, but there isn't a magic list, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you. So, Mr. Bond.
Yeah, on that topic, can I also point? It's also worth pointing people towards Cambridgeshire Community Foundation because Darwin Drive got money from them, and I got money from them for something to do with the Chesterton Festival. So they have a number of small funds, and the smaller funds are actually very interested in funding local activities. And they might even have one that might look kind of on a street party, for example. I don't know.
Thank you. Yeah. And I know Jackie said before when she come to this meeting how much support and advice is available to all groups and organisations that approach you, whether it's in terms of people for the first time or for reasons for not getting an award, and where it's been signposted to other possible alternative funding streams. So much appreciated. If there are no other comments, then Councillor Bird.
Thanks, Jackie. I know you do fantastic work with funding, and I know it's hard work. But there's just one here at M26, Road to Green. It's 72. Yeah, I just wanted to know if they didn't get anything. I know they got the 2,500 for the main grant, but they asked for 4,198, but you haven't ordered them anything.
This was the exact same project that came through to the main grants round, where we did a comprehensive assessment to it, and it was not actually adding any additionality to that grant or targeting particularly people from this area. So we will continue to work with them on their main grant and to strengthen their main grant bid, because again, I'm not specifically talking about this group, but a number of organisations are not quite giving us enough evidence. And again, it's a light touch on area committees. We don't have, we do try to be proportionate to the expectations, but we do need to understand why an activity is needed and where it's really targeting and reaching and making a difference to the people, with the most need. So I think some of these and larger organisations need to really be able to put together stronger bids to evidence the remit for this committee's grants.
Okay, thank you. Well, there are no other comments. But you've made the point that the funding is fully committed. So if there were any suggestions about amending any of the award, then it would have to be at the expense, so to speak, of another group. But if we are happy with, I know what it's always a very rigorous process, then we'll move to the recommendation, which on page 61. 2.1 relates to the detail of the applications, and in appendix 1, and also the criteria referred to in paragraph 3.6. And 2.2, the list, the summarising list of the awards in the table that goes over the page on page 62. So those are two recommendations, and I see all those in favour, City Councillors. Okay, thank you very much, and thank you again, Jackie. So we're going to have a 10-minute break, and we're actually ahead of time. Remind you that the display about the community vision, the strategic review is out in the foyer, so if you want to have a look at that again and chat to Jackie, then do feel free over the next 10 minutes. So, you ready, John?
Thank you, Chair. Apologies for my mistakes.
We're going to get back in the second part of the meeting, and it's agenda item 8, which is Environment Improvement Programme. We've got Ron Richards to present the item, pages 75 to 94 of the agenda. So, Ron, if you want to take us through the report, and then we'll have the questions and comments.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This report effectively has two purposes. Firstly, to report on progress on delivery of existing commitments for environmental improvements, and also to consider financial allocations to potential new projects. If I can first of all draw your attention to Appendix C of the report, which updates the committee on progress with delivering existing schemes. You will see from there that there has been quite significant progress made since we last reported environmental improvements to area committees some 2 years ago. I'm now pleased to be able to report that roughly in North area we have about 3/4 of our outstanding works programme complete now, with about another quarter of the programme still to finish off. During 2015, and since area committees last considered environmental improvements, we've undertaken a review of the operating procedures for this particular programme area, and there is now greater emphasis on delivering smaller scale, more straightforward projects where it's possible to do so. A further change, of course, is that we've tried jointly with the County Council to further separate out improvements to highways, particularly around, if you like, improvements to highways which are effectively core County Council as Highway Authority responsibilities, so the sort of things that we have seen in the past in terms of improvements to pedestrian crossings and those sort of things. So what we've tried to focus potential new EIP bids on are improvements to the broader public realm, if you like, which could of course include public highways. But there of course will be some overlap in certain areas. I think that's inevitable, and some of the work that we've been doing recently on treatments to improve the condition of verges is a good example of that, where there will probably continue to be some overlap. You'll probably be aware that over the last 12 months we haven't had any new EIP commitments. There have, however, still been some funding commitments in terms of supporting the County Council's annual local highways improvement programme. And what we now have is the previously £200,000 available citywide for environmental improvements, divided into now £170,000, which is split proportionate across the 4 areas, depending on population, with £30,000 as a contribution towards the County Council local highways improvements projects. In terms of inviting new bids, invitations were sent out in February, and we have a number of bids to consider this evening, which are laid out before you in Appendix A. Now, what you will notice quite quickly, I think, is that even with a slightly reduced overall budget allocation for new projects in North Area in 2016-17, the total value of all of the applications received, if we were to effectively commit all of those projects to the programme, is only around about half of the budget available in the current year. Now, one of the other operational changes that was made in 2015 to the process was that area committees now have the opportunity to consider inviting bids more than once per year, should they wish to do so. I think given the situation that we have in that we haven't had bids up to the full programme value, I would encourage you to think quite carefully about that. From an operational perspective, I think that's entirely doable. What I would urge you to try and focus on, and any potential bidders to focus on, is that obviously as we get further through the year, our opportunity to deliver by the end of the financial year starts to become more and more pressured. And so the later we were to do that, the more the focus would need to be on quite straightforward and easily deliverable schemes if we were to finish the programme out by the end of the year. So hopefully that generally comes as good news to councillors. There was one application effectively that has come forward, which is listed in section 4.8, I believe, of the report, which regrettably we don't think it's possible to consider as part of the programme in the current financial year. And the reason for that is the contract that we have signed into with a private company called Adshell, who maintain and operate effectively the sponsored, advertisement-sponsored bus shelters around the city. I think we've got around 60 or so of these shelters currently in place. We did have one regrettably damaged, I think, by collision, being run into by a vehicle a few months ago. And one of the bids before you actually suggested that we grab the bull by the horns and actually fund the replacement of the bus shelter there, if we can't get the company to actually provide a replacement. The difficulty that we have is that we can't get an answer out of Adshell as to what they propose to do for the remaining 3 years of the contract. And bearing in mind this is a 17-year-old contract so far, the full term of it is 20 years. But even if we were to, as I say, take the bull by the horns and fund the replacement of the shelter, because Adshell effectively have the rights to the site, we couldn't really do that without their permission. They would be perfectly entitled to come along and remove it because they've effectively got the rights to the site. Now, I really don't think that would happen. There's no indication that it would happen. But I think given that potential risk that we don't have control of the area, we don't consider at this time that it would be appropriate to commit further funding to that particular project. However, we are of course continuing to keep the dialogue going with Adshell to try and encourage them to replace the shelter for the remaining 3 years of the existing contract. There is one other project actually which is listed in N4, which is, and apologies for the referencing this and the confusion with previous items that you considered before you with N1s and N3s and what have you. That's a little bit unfortunate. Hopefully there's no confusion there. But one of the projects that we have ongoing at the moment still has to be finished off from Appendix C is a programme of drop crossing improvements across the various wards across North Area. Now, fortunately, we're in a position whereby most of the suggestions coming forward, hopefully all of the suggestions that have so far come forward, can be funded within the budget allocation for that particular project. There has, of course, been one additional one that has been brought to officers' attention in recent months, and that's listed as N4 in Appendix A. Now, I was keen to encourage this particular bid on the basis that, as I say, bids up to that point hadn't exceeded or even reached the budget availability in the current year. But of course, I ought to draw your attention to the fact that that is perhaps what we might consider to be a core highways function, and so consequently around this table may take the view that actually that is not a project that the City Council ought to be entirely funding. Local highways improvements, of course, is largely a county council funded programme, which the City Council tops up by a tune of at least 10% of the overall project costs. I think I have to say, certainly I think if that was a bid to local highways improvements, my understanding of that process is that it would stand a pretty good chance, but of course the county won't be re-inviting bids for that process until this sort of summertime for bids for consideration for the following financial year. The good news, I think, is that the County Council are very, very keen to work with us if you should support that particular bid tonight and wish to allocate funding to it. And they're quite happy to look towards sharing the costs to try and make the City Council's contribution go a little bit further. It's technically quite a difficult site to achieve dropped curved crossings on, just because of the constraints of the site. And the sort of suggested budget provision reflects that. Normally we would work on around about £2,000 or £2,500 per location for drop crossings, but we've put a bit more in this particular one because there are some technical challenges that we need to overcome there. And the County Council has said that they're quite prepared to help contribute towards those costs. So hopefully that is good news. And I think at that point, Mr. Chair, I'll pause and happy to take any questions that Council may have.
Okay, yep, thank you very much, John. Councillor
Thank you, John. It's really just great getting into this bus shelter business, and I appreciate this isn't your fault. Residents are really quite irate about this. Obviously, it's difficult to comment about having access to the contract, but it's not a situation that we have a contractual relationship with this provider or whatever, such that they choose whether or not we're going to actually provide the service that we've contracted them to provide, or the means that we've contracted them to provide. At what point do they become in breach of the contract with us? It's a very odd situation, especially given that the shelter was damaged, so far as we were able to understand, through by virtue of being hit by a vehicle. So the costs of replacement ought to be something that Adshel should be able to recoup from its insurers.
Yes, thank you. Certainly there are some excellent points there and questions arising from them. I think it'd be fair to say that, as I say, the existing contract with Adshel is sort of 17 years old. And I think by current standard it would have to be said that it's fairly weak. I have had a look through the contract with a colleague, and unfortunately it does not require Adshel to maintain a shelter in a usable condition for the full life of the contract. Which is regrettable, but that is where we are. Having said that, as I say, we haven't had any indication from Adshel that they're not prepared to consider putting the shelter back, but equally we haven't had any response from them at all today, and we're trying to get some response from them so we can make some decisions. You know, we know where we stand and we're able to consider potential alternatives. I don't know what's happening with regard to trying to recoup the costs of the damage from the person who caused it. That may well be a process that Adshel is in the process of going through. I think because they effectively, they will, I would imagine, be looking at this from a commercial position and be making a judgment based on effectively the value of the income from, say, the advertising space for the remaining years of the contract. And it may well be that they will take the view that that it's the cost, if you like, of replacing the shelter, which can be quite significant, several £1,000s, is just not necessarily this site going to generate that level of income generation. But as I say, that's a discussion that we are having with Adshel at the current time. I want to be fairly careful about how we play that, because I don't want to jeopardise our chances of effectively trying to encourage them to provide something for the public benefit. But as I say, we have little influence over them and even less leverage, unfortunately.
Thank you. Yes, I've got Councillor Price, Councillor Price.
Yes, thank you, Chair. John, can I take you to Appendix C? item 6, Ramsden Square, King's Hedges Road, Verge Parking. This was originally approved by North Area Committee in August 2013. We're now in March 2016. I started the process even before, obviously before August 2013, and I've since been re-elected. So this is how the sort of, you have to wonder why. Thank you. Must and should elect better councillors. In the meantime, I put forward to North Area Committee another verge parking TRO on Camp King Road. That was approved in July 2014 and was put in place last summer. Yeah, so that's just over a year. So that's taken just over a year. This has taken over 3 years, to the extent that it's very difficult as a councillor to keep coming up with excuses and reasons why when residents say, well, you told me you done last summer, because that's what we were told. And it hasn't been. So, whilst I welcome the things that have been done in here, and I was very pleased that the landline trees, for instance, were removed from Hanson Court. So we have had some successes. But I do think, and according to this, here we're talking about summer/autumn of this year before this TRO is put in place. We're talking a good 3 years to do something which really involves putting a few signs up telling people that they can't park there. I'm very, very disappointed and embarrassed by that one.
John, would you like to comment?
I fully understand that frustration, Councillor. I'm sure that's shared by your colleagues around the table and myself and my team too. All I can offer by way of explanation is that the City Council has done what it is able to do in terms of bringing these projects forward. I think we sat around this table some 15 months ago and actually agreed or considered the consultation responses for that particular project, and your instruction to me was to go away and follow the process through, which involved sending the County Council the information that they needed to process the traffic order. And there it has sat since. The County Council, I'm sure people around this table are under significant financial pressures, and they have had some real difficult resourcing challenges of late. I think the good news is that they do have another couple of members of staff joining their policy and regulation team to process traffic orders. And the latest indication that they've given us is that both this particular restriction and there's a package of traffic orders in the North area as well. Other traffic orders, largely double yellow line restrictions, many of which are in the West Chesterton area. I think they're saying at the moment that it could take up to 6 months to process those through. We are in regular discussions with them to try and get a better idea of that and how we might be able to assist with that, if at all. And one of the things I want to ascertain is whether they see them potentially being complete in 6 months, or whether they just see them being advertised within 6 months. I very much hope it's the former. Because the advertisement process is, it takes a little while to put together, but probably no more than a month of officer time, if that. The advertisement period is around 4 weeks or so. And then there's a process of determining the objections, which needs to be slotted into the next quarterly cycle of committee meetings. So I think it is doable within 6 months. As I say, we're in regular dialogue with the county to try and get some sort of better indication from them as to how long it's going to take. But certainly I understand the frustration. I think I'm absolutely certain that in terms of, if you like, the list of schemes that we've been working through, the North area as well as the other areas, the county were sent the information for this particular one in advance of the one for Camp King Road. quite why they have processed one before the others, I cannot explain. But I hope we are getting there with, as I say, these 2 new members of staff at the County of Norfolk.
Thank you. Councillor Bell.
Thank you. Thank you, John. My hanging baskets, I'm so pleased I've got my hanging baskets, Liz Chesterton. But the only thing I'm worried about is we haven't got our brackets anymore. Because they've changed all the lampposts, they took the brackets away. So will you get them back off the county or Balfour Beatty? Because if not, you'll have nowhere to hang them.
Right, okay. I don't know if you want to come up with that specifically. Balfour Beatty brackets.
Noted, Councillor. Literally, I'm making a note. We will ensure that we chase that up. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Sturt.
There it is. I did just want to make a short addendum to Appendix A N4 to add that Fort St George Bridge will be closed during Strawberry Fair and possibly Midsummer Fair, and so that gives an added impetus to having the drop curbs on Victoria Avenue, so that people who use wheelchairs for mobility or double calipers and parents with children or others with children in prams and pushchairs and so on can get across to those events in particular. I mean, they need to get across to everything, but to get across to those events when Fort St George Bridge will be closed. So just that addendum. But the other query I really had was this. I hope that with the 5,000 being spent here and the difficulties that are going to be addressed, perhaps one of the benefits of that is that in addressing the difficulties there, one also gets insights into how similar difficulties can be addressed elsewhere. So it's not as if that money is simply going on that particular site, because the learning and knowledge coming out can be used elsewhere. That's my hope.
Thank you. John, you want to comment on that?
Yes, certainly. I think what we've tried to indicate in these potential budget figures in Appendix A is effectively worst case scenario. So that's what I'd like to have as a working budget. What I'm in the process of doing is a sort of a top-up, if you like, of funds that remain in this EIP pot for North area, based on schemes that we're in the process of delivering now. Some of those are delivering at less than what we anticipated the original cost might be. So I think on this particular one, as I say, at this stage, we haven't done a detailed assessment of it, but we think at this stage it would be prudent to allocate up to £5,000. It could well be, as I say, particularly working with the County Council Highways team, that if they could put a sizable contribution into that, we might find that the City Council's funding commitment on that could be half of what that figure is there. So I think see this as the worst case scenario, and obviously as we have a better idea of what the costs are going to be in terms of where we are with overall spending in the programme, we'll bring that back to you, so you're able to consider that in the context of new bids as they come forward. And certainly if we are to have a second limitation round later in 2016, at that point I should be in a much better position to say to you, this is how much you've currently got in your pot to allocate to any potential new schemes at that point.
Councillor Mann.
A couple of things. On the ad show thing, I know nothing about, I should say, but is it worth you, Chair, writing to ad show? Chair here, maybe inviting them to come along to tell us about their good works, etc. If they're not even have to realise that's not so, then, bring them along and maybe see if we can get something out of them. So thank you to John for the number of schemes he's delivered in East Chester and Cam Causeway, Sherman Court, Ramsden. And I think we all should I think everyone here is well aware in this room of the problems with overlap between city councils and county councils and whose responsibility is what, and I think it makes everyone's job at every level very difficult. I must say I was a little bit disappointed in Councillor Price's such public's the right word, is it? Public criticism of us when his supporter group do run the council. I do want to reassure that this is almost certainly the responsibility of the County Council Policy and Regulations team. I was writing down, just as John said, that they finally got 2 new members. I've had a TRO that's privately funded waiting for 2 years, and I was told in January by the policy next team that they haven't got the resource to process it. I think probably it's something we could take up with the E&E committee or ACNI at the county council as to I think a lot of this is to do with the over-regulation of highways. If we were in London, I think this would be rather different because they've got rather different regulatory powers. Thanks for all you've done, and thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks for the comment. Yeah, I'm happy to liaise with John on writing to Annabelle. I thought you'd give me the right contact. I've written all the way that I can bear as Chair of the North Committee, and I'm sure that will prompt some action. Okay, so that's...
we can wait for the North Area Committee.
Yes, indeed, yes. On that one. On the other points, John, anything there?
Apologies, Chair, I'm getting a few problems with my microphone tonight, switching on and switching off. I think it's on now. Only just to say, I think, in terms of the liaison with the county highways team, we work very, very closely with them, as I'm sure people around the table are aware, and have a good working relationship, and I'm keen to maintain that. I wouldn't certainly want to jeopardise or undermine that. I do have a lot of sympathy with their position. One of the frustrations that we have is that that particular team has a very heavy workload at the moment of things coming forward, enforcement in bus lanes and those sort of things by ANPR, and of course we've got the city centre core access restrictions enforcement, CB1 and what have you. So my worry though is that we just, well, I wouldn't say that we keep getting bumped down the list, but I would like to have some assurance of when they can get to us, even if it's going to be 6 months hence. And I think we have that now. I think we have that assurance, and I certainly intend to hold them to that. But it is difficult, and there certainly is more involved in a traffic order than sticking down some paint and some signs up, as I'm sure people around this table are well aware. But I suppose the important point to bear in mind is that the public don't necessarily know that, and why should they? And actually having only taken 3 years to do something that seems very straightforward just doesn't do anybody any favours, does it? So we will endeavour to get it sorted.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Whilst Councillor Manning is obviously correct, we do indeed control the council we don't control is the county council, and it's the county council that has been holding this up. And the reason I brought this up here and in public is not because I haven't done it in a traditional way, if you like, by speaking to officers, emailing officers, because John's probably fed up with emails from me and on this subject. But given that everything originated through this process, through this committee, I think it's beholden on me to raise it through this committee. That's not strictly or necessarily a criticism of an individual officer that is sitting here who has clearly done his best to get where we are. And I understand that councils are finding it harder and harder to manage with fewer and fewer staff. Of course they are, but the paperwork and everything else involved with this was done. It was done before the Campkin Road run. The Campkin Road was started and finished well within that time. That is my criticism, not of individual officers.
Yep. Thank you for that clarification. Just a couple of things I wanted to mention myself. Regarding Appendix A of pages 81 and 82 and the on the scribbled submissions that follow, Councillor Perry's and O'Reilly's handwriting is as bad as mine, I noticed. But regarding those bids, I'm fine with it to Mill Road Depot to get those in. I'm mentioning it just to stress the fact that we do have the opportunity of effectively a second round of environmental bids that John had referred to, which probably comes in September at the North Area Committee, and just to urge everyone to ensure they do get easy, quickly delivered schemes in, so that we can actually spend up the budget we do have. On page 77, 4.5, there's just over 20,000 still available, and depending on the delivery of the schemes that we're looking at now, then maybe that's more or less. Just to make that point really about making sure we get bids in the sort of second round and spend up the money we have available. And I don't know if there are any other comments in particular on the thing tonight. But Councillor Gorsuch.
Just it's a question really. In the recommendations, 2.2 says to allocate funding 2016-17 for hanging baskets. 5954 for the ones in Chester and High Street, and 662 for 4 in Campkin Road. When I go to Appendix C, and then got item 12, the Campkin Road hanging baskets have been allocated a budget of 2,500. Can you explain it to me, please?
Okay, John, are you able to explain that?
I was just reading through this paper before I came along to this table, and I wondered whether that would get picked up. You're absolutely right, Councillor. The 662, of course, wouldn't apply to 2016. In fact, it would apply to 2017 and 18 onwards, so it's an ongoing commitment, effectively, that needs to be met to maintain existing hanging baskets once we've actually provided them. But because we haven't actually put these hanging baskets in yet, the first year will be covered by their introduction costs, so within the £2,500. So in fact, you've effectively got another 662 on top of the 43,704 to allocate in 2016-17.
So
my apologies for that error.
So you tell me there's 6,900 quid's worth of flowers?
They work out at about £165 to £170 per unit, per basket, to provide each year for 5 months or whatever it is, plus to maintain them, keep them watered regularly. That's the unit cost.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. If there are no other comments, then we move to the recommendations, which are on page 75, bearing in mind the explanation we just had on 2.2. But I won't read through them all. They're all there in front of you, 2.1 to 2.6. And if we're satisfied with that, can I just see all those in favour? Okay. Thank you very much, and thank you, John.
Thank you, John.
Report.
Sorry.
Okay, and we move on to our final item tonight, which is environmental report. And Wendy Young should be here to that. Okay. We were promised if Wendy hadn't turned up in time, a song and dance routine from Jonathan. But we're not going to get that. He was, yeah.
Maybe afterwards.
Homage to the chorus.
So, yeah, pages 95 and 114 of the report, environmental report. Wendy, would you take us to the report?
Thank you, Chair. Good evening. This report provides an overview of the environmental data for the North area for the period December to February. Just to confirm, we've had to make a slight change in the reporting periods that we're covering, because we were finding the area to date we were only covering partial quarters. So we're now covering full 3 months here to understand exactly what's happening in your areas for the 3 months, rather than us doing sort of a partial capture of data to give you a full representation of the actions undertaken. So on page 97, you will find that there are 4 continuing priorities that we're recommending stay in place. These are based on the experiences of our officers who feel that the issues still need tackling in the next 3 months, and it's what we're looking at doing for the period for April and May. We've provided an update from the officers as to what action they've been able to undertake, which covers page 99 and 100. If there are any questions on that, I'm happy to answer any as we go through. At the last area committee, there was an issue of Chesterton Recreation Ground and dog fouling problems that was brought up. Myself and the City Ranger actually went to the Friends of Chesterton Recreation group ground meeting, and we were able to resolve a lot of the issues, and we put some measures in place to deal with those problems. Throughout the rest of the report, we have some data that is that usually covers the North area. On page 109, we have a summary of some of the proactive community work that's been taking place in the North area in the last between December and February. We had the Clean for the Queen litter pick, which it's a national event that took place over a weekend. We actually had 4 different litter picks happening. We had one on the Mandsway Wreck on the Saturday. I think in total there was about 60 bags of rubbish collected across the city, so it was really productive, and we actually got some volunteers interested in helping out with their local communities from that event as well. We've managed to have community payback undertake some work at Aitken Street. They were able to clean and paint an area that could be used for an artwork display, and they've also taken a big litter pick for one of the areas along parts of the Guided Busway where we find them, because it's cross boundaries, sometimes neglected by the council, so we've been able to undertake that in the next 3 months. There are again on page 112, 113 a few more dog bins and litter bins available. Any suggestions we've received, and we'll take those away and to get anything installed. And we're currently taking on any suggestions for small-scale community payback work you'd like us to undertake. So we have things like small-scale painting booked in, shrubbery clearances, areas that can be cleaned and tidy. So we'll take away any suggestions for projects, assess them and see what we can actually do to help out. That's the report in summary. Just take any questions or comments.
Thank you. Councillor Perry.
Just as sort of an aside to the community payback things, I've noticed a lot of graffiti coming up all across town. My least favourite one is Nigel. And lots of tags. Are you guys finding you're getting police support with that, or are you? Is it just being painted over? What's happening?
We are aware that some areas of Cambridge are experiencing slightly higher graffiti than in previous periods. We are working with the police to undertake joint operations where we can, as they have powers of dealing with criminal damage more so than we do. We're welcoming any reports from the private either by email, which our customer service centre, or even for our Twitter account, and we're looking to remove them. Where they're on private property, we actually work with the property owners to get a waiver to undertake the work. So certain materials require them to be removed by jet washing, for example limestone and patches paint as a rental business status. So we understand what action we can and where they are, and also what sort of tag, which is a bit of scribble that just be removed if there's any intelligence which I can take and pass on to the police.
Okay, thank you. I've got Councillors Manning, O'Reilly, Price, Mr. Sargent. Okay, Councillor.
Just first of all say thank you very much for the community payback scheme that was carried out in Sherborne Close. The residents in the sheltered housing team were particularly impressed when I explained how it's been done. I was going to suggest another priority, which is there's fairly regular but intermittent, what is basically fly tipping in between. There's a cut through between Peyton Close and Kinross Road, and there's a fairly regular bit of dumping, a little passageway. I can give you the exact location outside of this, but I'm hoping we can get that on as a priority, just to try and keep an eye on it, to keep a track with it, to see if we can figure out where it's coming from. I was just going to ask about the, apologies for not asking outside this meeting, but the Millennium Bridge bid we've asked about, which will greatly reduce effect on things like the label bids from the council. But what's the kind of, I was assuming we're just going to put it in one of the 2 seating areas on the Millennium Bridge. Whereas the report sort of says suitability of location being looked into. I mean, is it just an issue that it hasn't been got around to yet, and fair enough, or?
Yep. Thank you for the comments about Sherborne Close. We're really glad that it was well received. We can undertake any projects like that. We can start again after the nesting season, which officially starts tomorrow, so anything that's sort of like that, it is suitable for a project. It takes a team a couple of hours, and then it gives it back to the community. I'm happy that that location could be added on as a fly tipping monitoring location. We only have four priorities suggested at the moment, so we have room for that. The Millennium Bridge litter bins, the concern we have from our operations team about placing them in the seating areas was if the bins became very heavy, we can't physically drive onto that bridge, we have to guard them quite some distance. So we're trying to figure out an area, obviously if we put them elsewhere on the bridge, we then cause an obstruction to pedestrians or cyclists. So we're trying to figure out if perhaps actually putting them at the Ransom closed end, perhaps on the footpath might be better, or in a situation, you have them at the other end of the bridge already.
Can I just come back slightly, Chair? So I think if we can't find a way of putting them in those locations, I think the point of them might be slightly, because a lot of the complaints about littering I got were about people sitting on those seating areas and chucking the litter down in the seating areas. So I think unless you put them on the ground beneath, you hope people chuck them down to the ground. Whether we could find a lighter bin or something like that, or a bin that doesn't fill up as much, smaller bin, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, if not, you can't do it,
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Price.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Wendy, for a very comprehensive report. Just as an aside, Councillor Manning's final point there, if you look at the bins and the seats around the front of Tesco on Campkin Road, you will see quite regularly that people are sitting on a seat that is right next to the bin, but the rubbish always goes on the floor beside it.
We've got high quality residents in each chest or something.
Really, I don't understand why that would happen. Welcome that clean-up on King's Hedges Road, sort of alongside the guided busway, and you're absolutely right. That's sort of part South Cambs, part City Council. I think that has been absolutely neglected in the past, and if this could be an ongoing sort of feature. If it gets back into anywhere near the sort of state it was before. I'm pleased with the enforcement on between the areas from the shops that I just mentioned on Campkin Road and to the regional college, and recognise that may well prove to be something. It will stop for a while. I'm pleased to see that there have been some fines issued. Residents have long felt that was the only thing that would stop people dropping the litter. But of course, every September there is a new group of students coming in, unless they're actually made aware that they will be fined. I suspect it's a process that's going to go on for at least 2 or 3 years. Clearly, King's Hedges Council are quite like these priority videos, but they really are very much a priority. And Minerva Way, I have no idea why Minerva Way in particular, and I don't necessarily think it's the residents that are living in the area. It seems to me to be a fairly convenient place for people to fly to if they want. I reported I think it looked like it had been set up under an archway for a party. There was a sofa and a couple of chairs, all laid out. Maybe it was for some sort of community gathering. I don't know, but and I saw Joe on my way around, so that was removed. And again, would like to see that continue, along with the issues to address dog fouling on the Pulley and Nunsway Road and on the town park. And thank you for doing this, and well done to everybody concerned.
Thank you, Councillor Price. Whether you can point back on that, but much appreciated. Councillor Bird.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, on page 12, where you've done a bit about the fly tipping.
On the data?
Yeah, on the data. I've got a surprise to how much more fly tipping we've got in that few months. It's gone up a lot, hasn't it? Is it just a certain area, Wendy, or is it, scattered around East Chesterton?
Yeah, page 106 of the main agenda item.
You've got the, yeah. And the other one is the abandoned vehicles as well, on page 9 of the same report. Another shop there, how many have been abandoned? And again, are they just scattered around in East Chesterton?
In regards to the flight tip, what we do try and do on the page afterwards is provide you some kind of summary. We analyse the trend. So just to go through what we found in this particular quarter was that there was some repeat incidents at Dundee Close, Maitland Avenue and Edinburgh Road, but there wasn't any particular trends, so we've not identified any patterns that people keep repeating the same flight tips on the same locations. What it may well be is that we've now rejigged our enforcement team, so we now have 2 dedicated officers that cover the north area, and they're out on foot a lot more, they're patrolling, they're actually able to take a lot more action, which is why you'll see the abandoned vehicles have gone up, because it's a lot of proactive work they're doing. And from what you can see, the reports are likely to be that it's where we're actually identifying it and recording it, because we're finding it a lot more and able to take action on it. So it's nothing of a concern where it's gone from 53 to 70. It's not sort of not double. It's not like a significant increase that we're currently worried about. It's more likely to be the same. We're discovering more flights because we've been given areas. We've been running the other way for one examples. Sort of gone in all the archways and had a look at stuff. So where it might have been previously missed, or you might find 2 or 3 flights that have gone together where we're discovering them earlier, and perhaps they're now being classed as separate incidents rather than. Before, if we had a sofa, we might have a black sack added to it, a chair. That might have been one incident before, because we're a lot earlier now. With regards to the abandoned vehicles, again, we do try and provide a summary. We have removed abandoned vehicles from Campion Road but Close, and we've also seized a couple of untaxed vehicles as well, because we have devolved powers, so those have been taken off the road because people didn't want to pay their car tax. So the majority are claimed, but we've removed 4 out of 44, which is quite a good result. You know, we're going to take us off the streets. Again, that's likely to be our officers being more proactive, but also we'd like to think that residents and public are a lot more vigilant and actually reporting stuff to us. We did expect that with the removal of the car tax disc, because people can no longer check their neighbour's tax, and people are suddenly going, that car's been there for 3 weeks, it hasn't moved. So a lot of the time we are finding it's not abandoned because people are reporting it to us, emailing, phoning through, and we were investigating more. So that's likely to be what that sort of pattern is recognising. So hopefully that kind of answers those queries. Okay.
Thank you very much. Mr. Sargent on the floor.
Wendy, just thank you very much for the bins you put in at Downs Lane. It's certainly well appreciated by a resident who walks a dog up and down there every day. Just want to question about the bin at the junction of Milton Road and Gilbert Road, which is starting to move up Gilbert Road. I wondered if it could be put back again, because it was serving both Milton Road pedestrians and Gilbert Road pedestrians, but now it's moving its way up Gilbert Road, and I assume that's the builders who've decided to move it. Can we have it back on the corner, please? Thanks a lot.
So it's been moving.
It has moved almost sort of like 100 metres up the road, and we believe it's the builders who have been putting up the new hoardings. It's not something we would do. Certainly we'll move it back to where it was more useful from that junction. That's the problem.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Stepp.
Thank you. First of all, I echo the thanks for all the general recycling and dog bins in West Chesterton, and note that we have a large allocation that hasn't in fact been allocated, so be rest assured that you'll receive a list. And if I could just at this moment say, it would be appreciated to have a dog bin outside the new Cafe Stir, which is very well frequented, and I don't suggest the owners are littering in any way, but it would be a good location. The second point is that I remember that in late 2015 at the North Area Committee, Mr Bond actually raised the issue of an increase in a problem with dog messes not being dealt with in the appropriate way. And around this table at the present time, it appears that this subject is coming up, and I've noticed in various streets where I haven't ever noticed before that
this problem is there. Whether it's a case of dogs with troubled tummies or something in the air, I'm not sure. But it does seem that there is room for particular attention being paid to enforcement in this area. And the third point I'd like to make is that thank you so much for the dog bin on the corner of De Freville and Chesterton Road. And what I think is amazing about the dog bins is that they're both prominent and discreet at the same time. It's wonderful. One actually knows the bin's there, but it doesn't create an unsightly item on the footpath. So congratulations for the way that they've been both put in and the way that they're constructed. I think it's an amazing feat.
Yeah, Mr. Bond.
Can I just add some intelligence to that? Sorry. It appears to be one dog owner mostly, because the droppings turning up in various parts of Chesterton clearly come from the same source, and it's not a source with a disturbed tummy. It's obviously someone who regards picking up after his pet is infra-dig.
Okay, thank you for that additional information. I was going to just make a query about what was a priority, and that was listed as completed in Avon Street and Darwin Drive, and whether the flight being there is still an issue or not. But it's not listed as a continuing priority. I'm happy for that to be dropped if it's not so much an issue anymore.
Which one was that one?
Avon Street and Darwin Drive, whether the flight being there is still an ongoing issue or not.
It seems much better.
Okay, fine. So in that case, we're happy for that because it's listed as completed and not on the continuing part of this. That's fine. And I know we always appreciate that Wendy and the team will pick up any issues anyway. The fact that they're not listed specifically as continuing parties, I know we will still be dealt with. Issues will be. And just referring back to the already mentioned pages 112, 13, and 14, right at the end of the main agenda, and the provision of bins. And I know that Arby still has 4 bins available for installation, so we'll try and sort that out. West Chesterton still has 4 bins available for installation. But Arby has installed all its dog bin provisions. So lots of dogs have been disposed of in Arby. None left available. And I think, I'm trying to remember if we had dog fouling signs on the report before, but we do have available, if you look on page 114, signs that are available for installation for all wards there as well. Well, yes, I want to okay, in that case, if there are no other comments, then there are recommendations, which I'll go back to on page. Recommendation on page 97. So the continuing priority is the addition of Kinross Road and the related posts with it.
The passageway between
which I think are going to be notable there. So with the addition of that, the continuing priority and the 4 that we've got listed on page 97. And I see all those in favour of that. In favour. Okay, thank you very much, and thank you again, Wendy, for again an excellent report. The final item, well, 2 items, but item 10, which is the dates of the flight correction there. It's all open today, 16-17. Just to mention that the June meeting will be on the 9th, and that's because we have had confirmation from Andy Campbell, the stagecoach, that he'll be able to attend that meeting. And so we've sort of accommodated him to some extent. Moved from 23rd because that's apparently the EU referendum going on. They suggested the 16th, but that's going to be the 9th so that we can get Andy Campbell from stagecoach along to talk to him on Thursday. And the other dates are as listed, and we've tried our best to make sure we're well clear of breaks such as Easter or half term or so forth. So hopefully that's going to work a little bit better in 2016-17. And then we have community events also listed, the Cambridge Federation of Residents Association, Chesterton Festival is mentioned in the agenda, and overpaid information about the Lilsby Award for quality action. And that's it. I may thank you very much for coming tonight, and say that it's a good night for me.
Good night.